But a lot of these people know that the average person views what they're doing as wrong, so they have to lie about it. That's why I mentioned this meme where, Dr. King is saying, judge people based on the content of their character, because most people agree with that. In order to instill racist, Nazi-like ideology, they have to use clever semantic games like anti-racist. Are you anti-racist? It's not enough to not be racist. You must be anti-racist. And then you ask them what anti-racism means. And you know what Ibram X. Kendi says? It means you must discriminate against people on the basis of race. I'm pretty sure Dr. King said not to do that. Oh, but they don't care. They don't actually believe him. This is the one thing that really gets these people. Whenever I'm talking to a woke person, I'll ask them, the first thing I will ask them is, do you believe in Dr. King's dream? I've actually now started hearing them say no.
It's in my other book, The Myth of White Fragility, taking down Robin DiAngelo's disgraceful book. She says in there that Dr. King's dream of colorblindness is a problem. So does Kendi. They say that you can't have a colorblind society because there is so much systemic racism and institutional injustice that you have to actively be an anti-racist and be racist. So it's essentially building a new Jim Crow. All right, they want a new Jim Crow, and it's not about voting laws. It's about who gets to be the upper side now. So they want to flip things because white people were bad before. We need to now elevate black people and people of color and go ahead and make that the actual legitimate power balance.
I don't think they actually care about white people. I think they just want power, and they found a path to get it. And it doesn't matter which race they trample on. That's why they ragged on Asians for so long.
Interesting. Well, so I think we're a good target, because we were oppressors. They've got that. You can't take that away. There was oppression. There was slavery. There was women couldn't vote. All those things are true. Bald white guys in bad wigs wrote a bunch of crazy stuff, right? But we also fixed it.
Right.
And we gave those powers up.
You look at how they actually claimed Asians were more privileged for a long time. And that's why I think the issue where they go after whiteness is that it's an easy way to go to someone and say all of your problems come from someone else.
Right.
It's demagoguery. They accuse Trump of doing the exact same thing when Trump did to a certain degree, but not nearly as much as they do. When they say whiteness over and over again and privilege and all that stuff, they're basically just telling people the reason you failed is not your fault. It's that guy over there. It's brilliant. I saw this great meme from a leftist on Facebook. It's one of those Twitter memes where it says employees, we need better wages and healthcare because we're suffering and dying. And then it says capital, no. And then it says woke capital, no, #BLM, rainbow flag, heart. And I gotta say, I love that meme. While I certainly don't agree with their view on capitalism, at least they're starting to notice the corporatist establishment is not going to give the leftists what they want. They're just going to put a rainbow flag up and say, now you can't be mad at us.
Well, and what I love most, though, is they needed an enemy. All right. And like you said, okay, it's not so much, maybe they don't actually believe that white people are the problem. I think they do. But they made whiteness evil. They turned it into an ideology that doesn't exist. Whiteness didn't exist for me. I've been white for a long time. All right. I didn't have a methodology towards my whiteness. I didn't wake up and say, okay, 9 to 9:30, I'm going to oppress black people. 9:45, I'll switch to trans people. No, I was busy living my life. But they othered us. They used their own methodology. And now they've got someone to go against, and they've got spoils. Because what they did is they take their identity groups, right, and they create a grievance. And they take that grievance to someone who has something they want, and they use their power. They aggregate power by delivering the spoils to their identity group. The problem is they've run into the circular firing squad problem.
Yep.
They can't rectify among their identity groups the problems they have because you got black people beating up Asians. You got a lot of issues. And Jews. And you've got problems between these groups that are not just cognitive dissonance, they're ideological dissonance. And they can't rectify that.
You remember what happened in the UK when the Muslims were protesting the LGBT curriculums in schools?
Right.
It was really weird because you'd have these woke people come out and start arguing with Muslims, and you'd have like women in like full niqab, and then you'd have a man screaming in the face of a woke person who's confused. And there was one video where the guy's like, I'm here to help you. I'm on your side. I'm here to help you. And they're like, no, you're not. The Muslim guy's like, this is degeneracy and you're wrong. And I'm like, I wonder if these people who truly believe they're insane psychobabble have ever actually spoken with a religious conservative person. I don't mean a Christian. I mean, when they come out, they I had a friend who has a picture of a woman in a hijab, and it says something like hope or something, like, hope underneath it. And I'm like, it's really fascinating that you are propping up religious conservatism. And like, because Islam is substantially more traditional than even modern Christianity.
It's
in the United States.
totalitarian if it's implemented the way the Salafists do. And that's the fun part. There's this perfect circular firing squad right there. Is you've got people who hate gays and want to hang them from cranes, arguing with a gay dude who's telling them that they're oppressed, and arguing about a curriculum that they don't want in their school. There's no way you could square that circle, and that's how we beat them, though.
But
that's how we beat them.
The issue is, I think the circular firing squad matters to a certain degree. Right now we've got this like school board member in California. They're demanding she resign because she said a bunch of disparaging things about Asian people. But at the time they were allowed to do that. It was part of their ideology to disparage Asians. Now that they can't do that, they're coming for, circular firing squad. But this person said, I'm not quitting, I don't care. And how long until they just move on to the next stupid nonsense and start claiming that, who knows what the next thing's going to be? Just some ridiculous form of oppression that a minority group will have. It's like, people with long fingernails that, they just grow too long. So they're oppressed. People who eat too much, they're oppressed. We know that.
Here's where I think it might bite them. Is they invented this several generations of entitled grievancemongers, I call them, right? Who've been told that it's not your fault. It's those people's fault. Now they work at places like Google. You familiar with Timnit Gebru?
No.
She was the head of Google's artificial intelligence ethics team.
Oh, yeah.
She's a black woman. She built a team of the purple-haired freakazoid robots and all her best friends, right? They wanted to publish a paper. The problem was it went through Google's review board and they said, first of all, the science is kind of garbage. Second of all, you're trashing our company. And third of all, this is basically just woke grievances, right? Fix it, or we're not going to let you put it out under our name. And they launched it anyhow. And then Google fired her.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, it's not because she violated both scientific principles, academic principles, and company policy. It's because she's black. And now she's got thousands of Google employees who are backing her play because she's been told, you're not wrong, you're just being oppressed, right? If you're black at Google, and you don't get everything you want, you have a right to demand that they meet your grievances.
James Damore was an excellent example of how insane the ideology is. So you're familiar with James Damore, I imagine? Ian, are you familiar?
Yeah.
So for those that aren't familiar, he wrote a letter about ways to improve the workplace between men and women. And it was based on scientific research. And he was like sharing it with people. And then a bunch of feminists got really offended by it. And then he ended up losing his job. There was a lawsuit. I think they settled. The funny thing is, James Damore's document was actually based upon modern feminist theory. It said things like workplaces were designed by men for men, and that we need to change things to better suit women. According to a study, women prefer social experiences more so than like top-down and isolated work environments. If men prefer X and women prefer Y, the workplace must be some combination of the two to accommodate for women. The women said, how dare you imply women are inherently one way or another? We are angry. You should be fired. To reiterate how insane that is, he was literally saying that Google's work environment was built by patriarchy and that they needed to accommodate the woman better. And so they got mad and demanded he lose his job. The women did. Isn't that amazing? He's basically agreeing with everything they've been saying. Doesn't matter.
You can't accommodate them. That's the thing. You can't accommodate them. And what they figured out is all they need is a disparity of outcome. All right. You say we have a disparity. There are too few black engineers, with freckles working at Google. Therefore, that's a racist systemic issue that they have to deal with. And then they jump right from there instead of looking at outcomes and say, well, maybe there aren't a lot of black freckled people who get into the tech field. Maybe that's why there aren't as many at Google. They're like, no, it's racism.
Right.
So they skip the step of the scientific process that says you identify a disparate outcome and then you look at potential causes, identify the ones that correlate the best. They jump straight from that to systemic racism. But the problem is that eliminates any look at root causes and you can never fix it. So that's where equity comes in. Right?
So one really great example of the corruption, colleges, now majority female.
Yeah.
Many colleges, I should say, are majority female. So men are now the minority in colleges. Do we now start abolishing all of the women's programs, women's scholarships, and creating men's ones?
I don't think so, no.
So you think the majority should get privileged money and access and resources? What are you, a bigot? Shouldn't the minorities be the one who get help because they're in the minority? Well, that would be like dudes in college at this point because it's mostly women.
And here's the thing, that changed in my lifetime. When I was in elementary school, that was when they started that stuff. And they said there aren't enough women going to college, there aren't enough. So they literally, inside of several decades, managed to flip that on its head. Now the question is, what do we want? Do we want equality of outcome? Right? Do we want to make sure that every group in society is equally represented in every outcome that we can come up with? Because that's what wokeness demands. And it can't be met because humans don't work that way. So what we have to figure out is, how do we get back to equality of opportunity? Because that's all you can do. And that's where I think our side needs to look at it and say, we can see the disparate outcome. I agree with you, there's too many black people in prison. I don't want them in prison, except most of them committed crimes. So how do we stop them committing crimes? Not how do we get them out of prison?
Well, there's interesting arguments about that. Questions about whether or not, based on race, they'll get harsher sentences for the same crime, which there are stats that show. And so the issue I see, there's real instances of racism. There's real instances of bias. Historical racism has created a ripple effect throughout history in today's modern generation. And an honest person, like, I think you'd hear this from Tucker Carlson. Of course there's racism. We'd like to solve these problems, but these people are hustlers. They're grifters. They're manipulators. They tell the privileged elites they're oppressed. They would claim to you that Oprah Winfrey or Serena Williams are oppressed. Meanwhile, a homeless veteran sleeping under a gutter who happens to be white is the oppressor. That's the insanity of their ideology. Honest people say, yeah, racism is a problem. I think we've actually done a lot in this country to do away with it. We've passed many new laws. There's been new Supreme Court rulings. We've done a tremendous job ending these things. But there are remnants of these historical policies and actions in private and public affairs. Redlining and blockbusting, very serious consequences for various people. Well, the people on the left manipulate the goodwill of regular people who don't want racism, and they lie to them and tell them they can't advance.
Exactly. We've done a lot of legal good to combat racism in the United States. Emotional is like an up and down, back and forth situation. And when we let the media tell us that we're different because of the colors of our skins, that kind of is damaging or undoing a lot of the good we can do to unify humans in our culture. But I do agree that legally, the United States has done a lot of positive things to bypass and break through the racist curtain.
And wokeness is resegregating. That's the problem. Identity politics is resegregation. And they're breaking people out and saying, no, your skin color actually is more important than the content of your character. And so we're going to put you in this block, and you will vote with these people, and you will identify with these people, and you will get spoils from us because you're one of these people. And that's the most destructive thing to what is a republic of equals I can even imagine, is to say that, no, the intangible characteristics matter more than your character. That offends me more than anything else they do. And I think we can call out racism, we can call out these problems and say we want to fix them and we want to help, but we have to do it by saying, yes, the content of your character matters more than the color of your skin.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.